welcome back to the Spirited Sisters podcast. Today I am delighted to be joined by Shilpa, who is a book writing and marketing coach. But I believe that she is so much more than that. From the little that I know of her life, she is a shining example of how to really give yourself permission to live life to the fullest and trust and back yourself. Welcome, Shilpa. How are you this morning?
Hey, thank you, Mitli, for having me. I am so good and so excited to be here. It's just going to be a fun chat. I can't wait.
Yes, it is. And I'm just really honored that you agreed to come on. And I'd love to kick off with, I don't know much about your journey, but I know that you moved from Mumbai to Adelaide and that was very much a sort of passion-driven decision. So I'd love if you would mind just giving us a little bit of background as to how you came to make that decision and what kind of spurred that on.
All right. Okay. So I think I moved nearly 4 years ago now when I was 29. And, this passion behind this move was, it was a 29-year long passion, if I may say. And I think from the moment that I can remember that I have, any memories of my childhood thoughts, I was always fascinated by life abroad. I always wanted to live outside of India and see what life is like. And as a child, I had a belief that it's a natural part of growing up, that the privilege of living outside India comes, as you grow, everyone's given a chance. That was my belief. And, while I would play with my friends, in my society, I would secretly be dreaming, when is my chance going to come? When are my parents going to take me abroad? When am I going to fly? So I don't know what is the root of these dreams, these desires, but I think this passion was burning for so long, this flame. I made it happen myself when the time came. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. And it shows the importance really of a vision, doesn't it? Wherever that has come from, but holding that vision of, being able to live outside of India and then making that happen for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably, stemmed in wanting to live in a more developed, and of course, when I was in India and in those days, it wasn't a very developed country. So I wanted to just experience more Westernism, more modernism, more advanced technology. But it's all a vision that manifested.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think let's just talk a little bit about your professional background. So when you arrived here, you were in the corporate world?
Yeah, I was. I was traveling all around Asia to deliver trainings for, one of the corporate companies.
Okay. And then I know that you then went on to invest quite a large sum of money in your education here. And you took that path from corporate to entrepreneur. Would you mind sharing just a little bit about how that came about? Because I find that so inspiring. I think that takes a big lot of trust to retrain and then to step onto the entrepreneurial path.
Absolutely. So I clearly remember that day, it was a decision that my husband and I made. And it was like an additional, in India, when we get married, there are 7 vows we take together. And this, stepping into this entrepreneurial journey was like our 8th vow we took together. Also to let you know of, the differences in the currency. So when I brought 50 rupees, 50 units of currency from India, I got $1 in Australia. And I've even forgot the conversion, but I think it amounts to some 800,000 rupees or 1,600,000 rupees that we together invested in our education. So my husband and I, we decided that, okay, we're using our massive chunk of savings and we're investing in our education to train as the highest quality of coaches. And we will stay this game. We will stay the course until we land, we're not backing out. So we're just giving it our all. That was our 8th vow.
That's amazing.
And I'm so glad.
And you did this together. It wasn't one of you leaving and the other supporting you. You did this together and took that as your 8th vow.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my husband and I were both, coaches in the business together.
It's incredible.
Going strong. Yeah.
And so from that path, you then took a year out and traveled around Australia. So how did that? Yeah. So how did that come about? You both retrained as coaches. You're obviously building a very successful business. So what spurred the decision to then get into a caravan?
I think it needs an extra adventurous husband to take that decision. But actually, I want to cut the long story short, but basically it was all triggered when, we were visiting our family in India when our daughter was just 9 months old. And while we were still there, we got an email from the property manager saying, I can't extend your lease after 2 more months because the owner wants to sell the house. And, we just had our own limitations. We were like, oh my God, moving, so we had planned to extend the lease for 6 months and then just buy that 6 months of time so we can move into our own purchased property once and for all. So we didn't want to move rental to rental, but now it was seeming hard. So that was the beginning of this all, and my husband just came up with this creative idea, Shilpa. What if I organize a real comfortable caravan and we put all our stuff in a storage warehouse? Let's travel Australia. Let's build, an even more mobile business. And when we come back, we can just move into a home of our choice. It freaked me out, but he's a salesman. So, yeah.
So how was that trip? I know I think you've written a second book. We'll talk about your first one because you've actually got two books.
I'm writing it still. Yes.
So you're writing a book about that adventure?
Yeah. So So how did it turn about? I think it was the biggest learning. It was a biggest learning lesson of my life.
Yeah.
What I learned was it's not as easy as people, the digital nomad life, it's not easy, especially when you have a 1-year-old clinging to you 24/7. So we started on the caravan thinking it's all going to be hunky and dory and, it's just going to be fun. We can have our calls from anywhere. But I learned a lot of lessons in how to successfully run a location-independent business. And that's what my book is going to be about. It's going to be about not to be carried away by what you're seeing on the internet. And there are some people who are actually successfully doing this very, very well. But they're not necessarily sharing the tougher bits. They're not necessarily sharing the behind the scenes, the real stuff that goes into making a successful mobile business. So my message is get to the core of it and, know that nothing happens by chance. It all happens by system. So I have basically learned my biggest lesson to systemize, to make friends with systems, to make friends with structure. That has been my biggest lesson on the journey because, I just thought my baby's going to be lying in a corner, letting me work on my laptop. It was far from the truth.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm really looking forward to that book because I think sometimes we can romanticize
absolutely
being a nomadic entrepreneur and being able to travel and to do whatever we like. But I've sort of jumped ahead with you, haven't I? So let's come back to the business that you and your husband started, and you trained as coaches and started this business, and now you work with entrepreneurs who have got that story within them and coach and mentor them through to create that into a book format. So is that what your business has always done?
Yes. Yeah. So, of course, for the first couple of years, we were just, we were finding our way and we were, doing a bit of everything until 2 years ago when, we held our first book writing retreat in India. So we've had 2 of those now, one each year. And now the program has actually transitioned. It has transformed to the next level where I was getting a lot of interest from people wanting to write their books, but not being able to travel to India or maybe not wanting to travel to India. and they wanted to write the book from the comfort of their home. And that's where I created this program now, which is called Write a Book Without Writing a Word. So I'll come to that in a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I really want to touch upon the story bit.
Yeah, please do.
And the most important thing that I see with all coaches and consultants these days is, they're thinking, I'll write a book when I have some more clarity, or I'll write a book when I know what I'm all about. But really, it just takes some conscious introspection, some conscious reflection of, on your past, because in your past is hidden your book. Because we're not saying, we're not asking that you write about imaginary stuff. And of course, this is all nonfiction. I'm not a fiction book coach.
Yes.
But, for you to position yourself as an expert, all the people need to know is where you're coming from, what your authentic story has been all about. And if you can stay true to your past, bring it to the present, and present it to the future, that's your book done.
That's so beautiful. And I know so many people say that they have a book in them, but perhaps aren't making or taking the steps towards actually bringing that book out of them and into the world. So what is your role? How do you do that? How do you coach people in that?
So when I say coaching, of course, there's personal coaching involved as and when there is the need. But the main role that I play is in interviewing my clients, interviewing the authors. So a lot of them get stuck on, like, I'm not being great at grammar. That's the lowest quality problem you can bring to your life. I mean, there's editors and there's everything, but so what I do is, once we start working together, we actually map out your entire series of content that's going to be packed into your book and, aligned with your business strategy. Because once people have grabbed your book, we want them to ask, what next? How can I work with you more? Right? So that's the strategy piece. And when it comes to writing your book without writing a word, we do that by having, planned telephonic sessions where I'm going to interview you on your, based on the outline that we've just designed together. And I interview you in a way that examines every topic from all particular angles, like, just asking curious questions as if I was an 8-year-old. Because if you are, and you would have received these emails and these messages from me earlier saying, I don't understand what a circle is. What do you mean? Like, do you all sit in a circle? And seriously, I'm like, I was that naive when it came to women's circles. So someone just being able to ask these naive questions so we can actually make the book really simple and easy to read and explanatory for the readers, Yeah. Basically, that's the entire process. And once we've got our interviews all recorded, they happen within over a duration of 15 to 20 days. Mm-hmm. Like 5 to 7 interviews of a couple hours each. And then, with our team, we get it transcribed and we actually provide you with your first draft manuscript.
Wow, so that's an incredible service. So
that is.
Have you ever met anybody who said to you, I've got a book in me, and when you've started to interview them, you've thought, no, you haven't?
What do you think?
I'm going to think no. I'm guessing no.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Actually, I am guilty of playing the same drama that some of my clients bring. When it came to my second book, Mitli, you won't believe, I've actually written a big story about this in one of my emails to my lists. So when I was starting out on the caravan journey, one of my friends, one of my acquaintance from my ex-corporate world, just passed a random comment in a WhatsApp chat group. And he said, yeah, I know your strategy. Jump on a caravan, travel for a year, write another book. That's what he said. And an idea that was trying to manifest itself through me, which was an inspiration. I could have just picked that up and taken it positively and said, yes, wow, this is a great idea. I can actually take notes and write a book. I went in resistance mode and I was like, what the hell? I want to prove him wrong. I'm not about writing a book. I'm not trying to, what can I say? I'm not trying to cash in on my venture. I'm not trying to, and I stuck to my words so strongly. I just refused to take a single word of notes in the entire journey. No journaling, no nothing whatsoever. Thankfully, I've got some Facebook memories, which is reminding me of, the transition. And then I'm just recollecting from, the different spots, the memories the experience that I had. So it's been a bit challenging writing this book because it's like a memoir with business lessons. But all the while I was thinking, I'm on a caravan and there are enough camping guides in Australia. Why do I need to write a book?
Yep.
It just needed a conversation with a friend who was able to just reflect back to me, Shilpa, what have you learned on this caravan? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, it is a business book. There's a business book in me. So it just needs one conversation to break through your limits and identify, yes, that is the book in me.
Yeah, so, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's really interesting as well to know that you've also gone through that process of resistance and trying to avoid what was coming. So can we just get back in time again? I'm jumping around a bit, but I'd really love to just talk to you about your first book, which is an Amazon bestseller.
It is.
And want solution, there's always one. So can you tell us a little bit about that and how you came to write that?
Yeah. So I think that book was my naive, it's literally me in that book putting together all of the coaching stuff that I had learned. Because, in the stage that so there's two beautiful stories attached, behind, there's the purpose behind why I wrote those books. So one of them was, a squabble that I had with one of my sister-in-laws when I was back in India. And I would always have communication challenges with this one person, though I love her, I just didn't know how to come across to her, or why are, when we are both trying to say the same things, why are we coming across as so different? So there was a lot of confusion and no clarity in, what's the, when should I agree with her? When should I take my stand? So there was a lot of extreme messages. Stand for your message, stand for what you believe. And there's no point in, make peace was the other extreme. So, that the first book of mine was actually my answer to my own questions, my answer to confusion, of how coaching concepts have helped me, what can I say, achieve middle ground and be at peace with, with my authenticity, be myself, and not wanting to justify myself to anyone, be happy with who I am. And the other story is, so there was, I was pregnant. I was 4 months pregnant at the time of writing that book. And I was having these, I was having these bouts of inspiration where I felt I want to write a book, but again, always waiting for a perfect time.
Yeah.
And then there came a point, there was this one moment, it was a defining moment where I thought, I don't want my pregnancy to be all about nausea and sickness. And, what's the story that I'm going to tell people? What's the story that I'm going to tell, after my delivery? So, the baby's going to be out and soon it's all going to be forgotten. So I wanted to just capture the inspiration that was really coming from within into a book, because I knew once the baby's out, I wasn't sure what I was going to be able to do. So just wanted to do it while she was inside me and just, pen my thoughts. And that's how I did it.
Beautiful. Thank you. It's always fascinating to me when I interview so many women, and the things that women create when they're pregnant is just phenomenal. It's just like we go into creativity overdrive. I know so many people start businesses. Just kind of, there's just so much momentum at that time.
Yeah,
fabulous, absolutely
we're
fabulous.
Literally creators in those months. Yeah.
So you touched on this a little bit, but just one of the things you very kindly agreed to talk about was just to touch on, I guess, things that could be perceived as failures, or, you know, those moments where we really learn lessons that actually take us forward, but at the time can feel like that we have failed. And I know you very kindly said you'd be willing to talk about this. So is there an example that you can give of those? And I think when you've come out the other side, it's actually harder to see them as failures because you've received a gift in them.
There's 100 of them, and I'm not thinking which one. I think the story that's top of mind is the one that I had. It's an experience I had when I was in the caravan. And when I was in the caravan, because I wasn't getting any time out from my baby, because, you know, before we set out on the caravan, she would go to a daycare 3 days a week. And I had no idea. I was like in absolute bliss that was going to change, that she's going to be 24/7 in a box with me, no privacy, nothing. So basically there came a point, like, you know, that those 10 months of being on the caravan became the business black hole of my life. And I was so depressed. I would see people on Facebook making epic things happen. And I'm like, here I am, just stuck to my baby, not able to do, you know, anything. And there was this constant dilemma. So when I was, you know, on the caravan, I felt, you know, the world outside is longing to do what I'm doing. Everyone wants to jump on a caravan and go away for 10 months. Yep. And here I'm doing it. I'm supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be contented, but I'm not. And so, you know, every time my husband would say, hey, Shilpa, let's go sightseeing. And I'm like, aren't you ashamed? You know, isn't it time to do business? Like, what are we doing? And then he would say, yeah, okay, fine. Let's stay home. Let's try to do something. But we would just not be able to do anything, literally, with the baby. And then when we were not doing business, I was guilty for not doing business. And when we were not traveling, not sightseeing, I was guilty for not sightseeing because I was wasting time on the caravan sitting in that box. So there was this constant dilemma. And I was like, there came a point I have nearly touched depression. I didn't get myself clinically diagnosed, but I was like, my saddest version ever. There came a point because of no stimulation, you know, just like stuck to the baby all the time. And then feeling guilty, you know, that I'm not loving this baby with all my heart, you know. So, coming to the failure, the ultimate point of failure was, I felt, you know, there came a point when we started living off our savings. And I was just so afraid, like so freaked out. I could see 6 months down, I could see that we would probably end up on the road, on the streets, homeless, you know, like nothing of our own. How am I going to keep my baby safe? How am I going to feed her? What's happening? And it was all baseless. It was all baseless fears. We were far away from that. But it was just me exaggerating drama in my head. And I just asked Aki, my husband, you know, Aki, where do you see us 6 months from now? And for me, the clear answer was homeless, you know. But thankfully, he said, 6 months down the line, Shilpa, I think life would be really nice. We would have settled into our new home. Your parents would visit us. We would be showing them around. And at that time, it sounded like fake. It sounded impossible. But I just chose to believe in him because I had nothing better to believe in myself. So I don't know if I'm just tying an irrelevant story, but this is the story I really wanted to share. Like when I was seeing myself headed to homelessness, and that was all baseless, like, you know, I just chose to believe in a false, what can I say? What was seeming like a false dream. I just chose to believe in him. And happy to report, you know, we are more than 6 months ahead of that moment. And my parents did visit us. We are in our new home. My parents actually did visit us. They stayed with us for 2 months. we just bid them back home to India 2 days ago. So yeah, sometimes just the power of believing in someone's vision.
I'm so grateful to you for sharing that with us, because that's a really powerful story, and I'm incredibly grateful for your vulnerability, because I think sometimes we live in a time and a culture where both extremes are difficult. It's hard to share the pain because we're so used to seeing people's highlights, but it's also hard to share the success, because there's this sort of getting knocked down if you're sharing your success or celebrating your success.
Yeah.
So being able to share both, I think, are really, really important. And interestingly, you and I connected from your inquiries about circles. And, that is a really big part of women's circles, being able to share exactly where you're at. And so I think although we come at it from very different ways, listening to and witnessing women's stories is such an integral part of how we show up in the world. And women are storytellers. So I love the work that you're doing to help women take that once they've processed that and put it into a book format that can then serve others, but also serve them and their business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What incredible work that you're doing. So I'd love to just go sideways again and come back to that process. So when clients come to you and you go through that interview process with you, what are sort of the usual resistance or the usual fears that you hear? So the beautiful women listening to us chatting, I'm guessing there will be some of them saying, yes, I've got a book, and then that'll be completely followed by all the reasons that it won't work for them. So can you just sort of, I don't know, debunk some myths or just shine a light on some of those reasons?
Absolutely. So, the biggest myth that needs to be debunked is it takes a lot of time.
Yep.
And it doesn't. It only takes as much time as you want it to take. And I actually had put out an offer, I think 3 weeks ago, and that I'm starting a new program in April. And I've actually offered people. So the thing is, some people are too scared of writing the book too fast, and others are scared of writing it too slow. But I want you to know that, you will end up writing your book at the pace that's just right for you. And that's why I created the option of finishing your book in 90 days, like in 3 months or 6 months, depending on the rhythm that suits you better. Okay. So time, money. So I was just sharing with one of, these were the top things which actually a lady shared with me on the phone yesterday. So time, money, not having enough content. Are you kidding me? Like, if you have been, and most likely if I'm in conversation with you, or if you're listening to this and if you're keen on writing your book, if you're hanging around in these entrepreneurship circles that that you probably see this video in, you're anywhere over 25 years of age, anywhere between, 20 to 40 to 50 to 60. And if you had even, like 20 years of experience, life experience, you've got enough content for 20 books. Yeah. And I'm not saying, you got to talk about the irrelevant details like what I ate and what time I slept. But so it just needs one chat. It just needs one exploration to really land on your message.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That's about content. And about money. About money, I think I was just sharing with, the same lady who actually shared with me these, top limitations on how some of my clients are actually making big stuff happen because they've written a book. They're able to cash in, or, they're getting return on investment because they're able to close sales conversations when they're presenting their book to a prospective lead. Because when someone's wanting to work with you, they're looking for your certainty. And if your certainty, if you're lacking certainty, the book actually adds an element of, see, hear, and feel. So they can actually touch it, feel it, not hear, sorry. Yeah, they can hear it if you make an audiobook out of it, which one of my client has done. And without any marketing, his audiobook is being sold, depends on, based on the platforms that he's launched it on. and he's actually getting 2,000 USDs. I'm not joking. I can actually share data. He's actually getting 2,000 USD worth of sale for the last 2 months consistently. So, time, money, stories.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Because I think, yes, the time, either you haven't got enough time or it's going to take too long. Money, there's the idea that books don't make any money. So what's the point? Or it's going to cost a lot of money to go through the process. And then that you haven't got enough content. Or perhaps some people believe, I mean, do you have people who think they've got too much content and so they can't kind of see the wood for the tree?
I think it's a strategy. It's an escape strategy, you know, when people say, I've got 20 books in me. I don't know which one to start first. Like, start wherever, dude. Come on.
I love that. I love tough book coach moment. Just start.
Totally. It was.
Thank you for your honesty, because I think that's really interesting. So really all of these are those excuses, those fears that we all use, whether it's about writing a book or starting an online course or whatever it is, putting an offer out. We just have these things in our head that keep us.
You know, the thing that just I'm reminded, and I think it's really awesome when it's worth saying it. We hold on from writing our first book because we want to write our best book in the first go. But just imagine what's possible if we are willing to write an average book so we can write a better second book.
I love that. I'm writing that down.
Yeah. Are you willing to write a bad book so you can write a better book?
I love that so much. And, you know, when I started the podcast, I had very, very similar doubts and fears and insecurities. And the beautiful man that does all my post-production work, when I was delaying and we weren't releasing, and he just said, Nitli, the first episodes won't be your best. Just get them out there. And I think often, yes, we put this expectation on ourselves that our first effort, our first attempt has to be our best work. And we'll get to our best work by doing the work. That's the journey. Yeah. Wow, this has been so much fun. I can't believe we're coming to the end of our time together. I think what I'd like to just ask you as we come to the end is, you have touched on this, but just to give you a chance to share your passion and just why you believe that finding your voice, that owning your story and writing the book is so important, particularly for coaches and consultants, which is who you support. I know you've touched on that from a business perspective, but from a personal perspective, from a personal development, from a spiritual perspective, why do you think it's so important? Why can't we just keep our books hidden in us?
Yeah, you can't. You can't because you don't have my permission. So, you know, a lot of thoughts are coming to me right now. I think why it's really important is, first of all, a lot of people don't write their books, or they just keep their stories hidden inside of them because they think, what's new? Like, what's the big deal in my story? Why will someone want to read my divorce story when so many women on the earth are, you know, on planet are divorced or going through the same challenges? What's unique about me? This actually comes from a place of fear, or from a place of feeling I'm not good enough. Yeah. And at this point, I know it's easier said than done, but I will still say it. That try to, you know, come from a place of abundance and know, and this is a fact, know that there are enough clients on the planet for you, and there's still enough clients for your other, you know, for your fellow coach who's in the same niche. And why will someone read your book and not hers or not his? Because you've had a specific set of challenges, or your soul, your purpose will connect to theirs, to your clients. What can I say? I mean, we are also, and that's why it's really important, because there's just one you, there's just no copy. Mm-hmm. Yes, there are a million business coaches, and there are millions of content coaches and, you know, whatnot, fitness coaches, but there's just one you, and no one does it like you do it. So I think, that's why it's your duty to leave a legacy. And I know it sounds fake, like even as I'm saying it, my mind questions, is it really leaving a legacy? This is all fake marketing stuff. But just imagine if you have left a book, what access are you providing to the next generation, to your family? Like your great grandchild might proudly be reading a book and thinking like, wow, because they're going to be living in a world which is 100x more advanced. Yeah. And they're going to see our old methods of doing business then, in the future. Just, it excites me to see, how they're going to be able to perceive our way of doing things in their even more advanced world.
Thank you so much. You're very persuasive, and it excites me to feel your energy and your passion for this. Just it's so beautiful to see, and clearly you have found your zone of genius, your area where you are being of such deep service to others. Absolutely. So thank you.
I wish I could hug you right now.
No, to lean through the screen.
Yeah. But I'm going to be coming to Perth soon.
Oh, cool. Yes. That'll be fun.
Maybe. Yep.
Cool. So I'm going to finish up and just ask you, you've shared so much with us, but is there one thing that you would like every woman listening to know? If there's one thing she takes away from this, and you may wish to repeat something you've already shared, but what's that one thing so that we don't forget it?
Yeah, okay. I would say your story matters, and your book is already been written. Your book has already been written, I would say, you just got to bring it out of you.
That is just perfect. What an incredible, wow. Yes, that's the quote of the show, I think. That's an incredible note to finish on.
Absolutely.
So I'll put all the links so that people can find out how to work with you in the show notes as usual. And I think you've also very generously offered your Big Book Idea Unpack session, which you're actually offering it for free for anybody who's listened to this. And I presume we'll put a time limit on that. But I will share that offer. I'll pop that into the show notes so that people can find that link and go through and have a chance to hang out with you and unpack their book idea. What an incredible opportunity. I think I might do that.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. Shilpa, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute privilege and an honor to chat with you. I'm so grateful for your time. And thank you, everybody, for listening. You'll find all the links and the notes in the show notes.
Thank you, Mitli. It has been such an honor, such a privilege, absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.